Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Book of Warren. I'm glad to have you with me. So, if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where I read through one chapter of the Book of Warren each episode, and to give a little bit of context, give a little bit of insight, give a little bit of good times. So, stick around. So, if you remember last episode, we read Mosiah chapter 19, in which the Lamanites attack the kingdom of King Noah, and what does King Noah do? He literally runs away, and he forces the men to leave their wives and their children in the city when they run away into the wilderness to get away from the Lamanites. Not everyone does leave their families, but some of them do. The ones that stayed in the city tried a drastic strategy that ended up working, at the very least not getting them killed, by making a deal with the Lamanites. And meanwhile, the people that did leave their families and actually wanted to return to the city after a little bit, King Noah said, no, you can't do that, you have to stay here with me. And so they killed King Noah at the stake, just like Abinadi said they would. And now, King Noah's son, King Limhi, has inherited the kingdom. He is forced into making a deal to pay tributes to the Lamanites every single year of half of everything they own. And now that's the situation. King Noah's priests managed to get away, so they are still kind of unaccounted for. But yeah, King Limhi is kind of stuck with a screwed up kingdom. So let's see how he manages, shall we? So yeah, without further ado, let's read Mosiah chapter 20. Now there was a place in Shemlon where the daughters of the Lamanites did gather themselves together to sing and to dance and to make themselves merry. And it came to pass that there was one day a small number of them gathered together to sing and to dance. And now the priests of King Noah, being ashamed to return to the city of Nephi, yea, and also fearing that the people would slay them, therefore they durst not return to their wives and their children. And having tarried in the wilderness, and having discovered the daughters of the Lamanites, they laid and watched them. And when there were but few of them gathered together to dance, they came forth out of their secret places, and took them, and carried them into the wilderness. Yea, 24 of the daughters of the Lamanites they carried into the wilderness. What in the world? These wicked priests of King Noah not only are too cowardly to return to their own city that they are supposed to be in charge of, but they kidnap Lamanite daughters? Gross. Obviously, we have no idea what their intentions are. We have no idea why they did this, but the implications are gross, and I don't appreciate that. My goodness. Jeez. Just go home. Face the shame of having abandoned your city. Maybe they won't kill you. Going back to your city and being faced with shame and hatred is better than kidnapping Lamanite daughters? What do you think that's gonna do? You think that's not gonna make the Lamanites angry? Like, really? The wicked priests of King Noah are making it so that more Lamanite attacks come on the people of Limhi. Unnecessarily. Like, they didn't have to kidnap these girls. Like, what do you mean, bro? What are you doing? Oh my gosh. Anyways, so that is why I hinted so heavily at the end of last chapter and at the beginning of this chapter that the missing priests of King Noah are still a loose thread that has yet to be resolved, and that is because they continue to wreak havoc. Oh my goodness. And actually, fun fact, I'm pretty sure this is mentioned later on, but when the Nephites come and find the people of Limhi, King Limhi initially treats the Nephites so badly because they're suspected to be the wicked priests of King Noah that kidnapped the Lamanite daughters. Obviously they weren't, but the reason that they were treated so badly, or at least so harshly in the beginning, was because of that. So it's kind of cool to see this all come full circle, where at first we see how King Limhi is so harsh to the Nephites, and we don't understand why, and now after these chapters and chapters and chapters of context, now we know why he was so harsh. Now it all makes more sense. I can't get over how cool this backstory is. I'm gonna keep talking about it because it's just so fun. Anyways, let's see what happens and what repercussions come from the wicked priests of King Noah kidnapping girls. I actually don't know how old they are, but the daughters of the Lamanites. Y'all, can you not please? Oh my goodness. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites found that their daughters had been missing, they were angry with the people of Limhi, for they thought it was the people of Limhi. Therefore they sent their armies forth, yea, even the king himself went before his people, and they went up to the land of Nephi to destroy the people of Limhi. And now Limhi had discovered them from the tower, even all their preparations of war did he discover. Therefore he gathered his people together, and laid wait for them in the fields and in the forests. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites had come up, that the people of Limhi began to fall upon them from their waiting places, and began to slay them. So I mentioned at the end of last chapter how probably tiny, measly of an army King Limhi inherited from his father, because King Noah clearly did not emphasize national defense of their city, and so it seems like he had either no army or a very small army that was really underprepared to fight the Lamanites. And so when King Limhi inherited this kingdom, he couldn't exactly build up his big army because that would be seen as a threat to the Lamanites and they would probably attack him, and so he's just stuck being surrounded by the Lamanites with a small, unhelpful army. But this time, when the Lamanites attack the Nephites, instead of their king, like King Noah did, literally just running away and leaving and trying to avoid the situation altogether and letting probably hundreds or thousands of his people die, instead, what King Limhi does is really strategic. Because if you read verse 9, Limhi basically does guerrilla warfare. He does leave the city. Yes, he does, but it's not in an effort to run away from the situation. It's an effort to strategize. He and all of his people hide in the forests and in the trees so that when the Lamanites come, they can jump on them unsuspectingly. And that is in fact a very successful strategy for when a tiny army is trying to beat a much, much larger army. They're using their home turf to their advantage. Instead of Limhi seeing the oncoming army and just throwing his hands up and calling it quits, he tries his best to defend his people, to get the Lamanites out of there. And he does a really interesting strategy. He hides his people and they attack them unsuspecting in the forests. That's so cool. I have so much more respect for Limhi now because of the lengths that he will go to defend his people. Oh my goodness, what a guy. And it came to pass that the battle became exceedingly sore, for they fought like lions for their prey. And it came to pass that the people of Limhi began to drive the Lamanites before them, yet they were not half so numerous as the Lamanites. But they fought for their lives, and for their wives, and for their children, and therefore they exerted themselves, and like dragons did they fight. And it came to pass that they found the king of the Lamanites among the number of their dead, yet he was not dead, having been wounded and left upon the ground, so speedy was the flight of his people. And they took him and bound up his wounds and brought him before Limhi and said, Behold, here is the king of the Lamanites. He, having received a wound, has fallen among their dead, and they have left him. And behold, we have brought him before you, and now let us slay him. But Limhi said unto them, Ye shall not slay him, but bring him hither that I may see him. And they brought him. And Limhi said unto him, What cause have ye to come up to war against my people? Behold, my people have not broken the oath which I have made unto you. Therefore, why should ye break the oath which ye have made unto my people? And the king said, I have broken the oath because thy people did carry away the daughters of my people. Therefore, in my anger, I did cause my people to come up to war against thy people. And now Limhi had heard nothing concerning this matter. Therefore he said, I will search among my people, and whosoever has done this thing shall perish. Therefore he caused a search to be made among his people. The way that King Limhi de-escalates this is so cool. Not only is it a miracle that they began to actively drive the Lamanites back, despite being not even half the size of their army, as it says, but also they capture the king, who had been gravely wounded and left behind on the street. And King Limhi, instead of impulsively and aggressively killing him, like his servants suggested that they do, he was like, no, let me talk to him. Let me understand why they're attacking. I'm not just going to kill him in blind anger. I'm going to figure out why they're here. Because again, he's confused. He hasn't done anything, to his knowledge, against their oath with the Lamanites, so he sees no reason for them to attack. And this is where he realizes, through open communication with the other side instead of blind aggression, oh, you think that we kidnapped your daughters? No. That wasn't us. And if it was one of us, I'm gonna kill them. So King Limhi opens communication with the aggressor instead of blindly killing him. He could have easily killed him. The king of the Lamanites was gravely wounded and probably mostly dead anyways. He was left by his own people on the road. This is wild. And yet, he attacks enough to defend his people, and then he tries to figure out the root of the aggression. He tries to figure out why they're attacking, because he sees no reason for them to be attacking him. So instead of being like, oh, they're attacking me, I'm gonna attack them, he just does what he needs to do to defend his people. He, employs those guerrilla warfare tactics, like I mentioned, and then he talks to the king. And when he talks to the king, instead of yelling at him, being like, why are you attacking my people? You're a terrible person. Like, we didn't do anything to you. Why are you doing this? He says, why did you attack my people? And the king says, you kidnapped our daughters. And King Limhi goes, no, I don't think we did. So anyways, this is just a fascinating example of how King Limhi de-escalates it. Because from one verse to another, they go from having a Lamanite army actively attacking their city to, presumably, no more attack happening at all, because King Limhi promises to find and to kill the perpetrator. What a guy. Like, my respect for King Limhi is just skyrocketing right now. Probably because the bar for a good City of Nephi king is on the floor after Noah, but still, King Limhi's awesome, and I have so much respect for him, and just how he deals with aggressive situations like this. Now when Gideon had heard these things, he being the king's captain, he went forth and said unto the king, I pray thee forbear, and do not search this people, and lay not this thing to their charge. For do ye not remember the priests of thy father, whom this people sought to destroy? And are they not in the wilderness? And are they not the ones who have stolen the daughters of the Lamanites? And now behold, and tell the king of these things, that he may tell his people that they may be pacified toward us. For behold, they are already preparing to come against us, and behold, there are but few of us. And behold, they come with their numerous hosts, and except the king doth pacify them towards us, we must perish. For are not the words of Abinadi fulfilled, which he prophesied against us? And all this because we would not hearken unto the words of the Lord, and turn from our iniquities? So now, Gideon, a believer in Alma trying to kill King Noah, is now, or maybe was before and just wasn't mentioned, the king's captain. So I think he's in charge of the army. I think he's kind of like the military guy. And he's like, King Limhi, it was the priests. Like, it must have been the priests. Couldn't have been one of us. I think it was the priests. You should tell the king that, so we don't get attacked again, because I can see them preparing to attack us again, and I'm afraid. So now, King Limhi is getting a broader understanding of the entire situation, because as readers, we know the situation, but King Limhi doesn't, so it's kind of cool to see King Limhi become aware of more and more information as this kind of aggression and this conflict unfolds. And now let us pacify the king, and we fulfill the oath which we have made unto him. For it is better that we should be in bondage than that we should lose our lives. Therefore, let us put a stop to the shedding of so much blood. And now Limhi told the king all the things concerning his father, and the priests that had fled into the wilderness, and attributed the carrying away of their daughters to them. And it came to pass that the king was pacified toward his people, and he said unto them, Let us go forth to meet my people, without arms, and I swear unto you with an oath, that my people shall not slay thy people. And it came to pass that they followed the king, and went forth without arms to meet the Lamanites. And it came to pass that they did meet the Lamanites, and the king of the Lamanites did bow himself down before them, and did plead in behalf of the people of Limhi. And when the Lamanites saw the people of Limhi, that they were without arms, they had compassion on them, and were pacified towards them, and returned with their king in peace to their own land. The image of a wounded Lamanite king emerging from a Nephite city with an oncoming army of his own people getting closer and closer, the king of the Lamanites kneels. He is surrounded by Nephites. He's emerging wounded from the Nephite city, and he kneels and pleads with his own people. He's like, don't attack these people. They did not do what we think they did. We have no reason to hate them. Wow. Even the Lamanites in this entire overarching situation are bad, because they're the ones that have the people of Nephi under tribute and have them basically under bondage. They still, at least at the moment, are people of their word. They only attacked because they thought that the people of Nephi broke their oath. But because they didn't, the king of the Lamanites will not allow his own people to attack and break their end of the deal. So I guess in this situation, the Lamanites are very good to their word, which is surprising considering that the Lamanites are often painted as like the big bad. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So the standout verse for this chapter is going to be verse 22, which says, And now let us pacify the king, and we fulfill the oath which we have made unto him. For it is better that we should be in bondage than that we should lose our lives. Therefore, let us put a stop to the shedding of so much blood. So this was spoken by Gideon. And if Gideon only showed up one time in Mosiah chapter 19, which is actually his first appearance, we would think that he was aggressive, because all that he does in that chapter is he pulls out his sword, he fights King Noah, he tries to kill King Noah, and he's only stopped by the fact that a Lamanite army is actively attacking them at the moment that he was about to kill King Noah. If we only had that as reference as to who Gideon was, we would have a pretty biased view of him. We would think that he was pretty much like a zealot. We would think that he was violent. But the fact that we keep hearing from Gideon, and the fact that he is King Limhi's captain, means that we get to realize, oh, he actually cares about the people, and he cares about keeping the oath. He says at the very end, he says, let us put a stop to the shedding of so much blood. He's a good captain of the guard. Gideon's awesome. I have just as much respect for Gideon as I do for King Limhi, even though Gideon is not quite as visible or not quite as prominent as King Limhi himself. Anyways, this was a fascinating chapter when it came to the difference between how King Noah dealt with the Lamanite attacking army to how King Limhi dealt with an attacking Lamanite army. It's so different, and the differences really highlight how awesome Limhi is. and how he dealt with it with such grace. And I'm sure that there were Nephites that died, but a lot fewer than if they had just stood around and done nothing, or had run away like King Noah would have done if he were still alive. So, anyways, King Limhi is amazing, and he opens lanes of communication instead of being aggressive, and he uses what tactics he can in order to defend his people to the best of his ability, even though the chances of him succeeding are probably really low, because their army was not even half the size of Lamanite's army, and yet they won. Why? Because King Limhi is awesome, and he spoke with the Lamanite king instead of attacking out of anger. Oh my goodness, the class that King Limhi has, oh man. So yeah, that I think is the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. This was such a fascinating chapter. It was a lot more like narrative story than a lot of the other chapters that we've read have been, but wow, the characters that these narrative chapters highlight in just how they live their life and how they deal with different situations is so fascinating to see. These parts of the Book of Mormon matter just as much as the prophesying and the doctrinal parts, because they highlight people of God in action. They highlight what to do. So yeah, anyways, there's just a few links down in the show notes that I want to highlight. The first ones are some links to show you digital versions of the Book of Mormon. So there's 2 different app downloads and a web version that you can take if you don't have your own copy, because reading the Book of Mormon is delightful. There's also a quick let me know what you learned link, so if you want to shoot me a message, whether it be a comment or a question or some feedback, send it there. There's also a support the show link, so if you want to shoot me a few dollars, support what I do, you can, that's available for you. And finally, we are on YouTube, so if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel and get potential extra content, and even just listen to the podcast on that platform, you can. Thank you so much for listening, and I think that's all I have for you today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.